Greetings, book lovers everywhere. I'm E-Train, an 11-year-old bookworm and literacy advocate. Welcome to E-Train Talks, where I discuss everything books in the hopes of inspiring others to love reading, as much as I do, and today is a great day. Strike that, today is an absolutely, positively, undeniably amazing day. Why do you ask? Well, because I get the pleasure of talking all things middle grade with the inspirational, incredible, and all-around wow author, and my newfound writing hero, Elly Swartz, the author of Dear Students and other books for middle graders. So, through my intense research and going through the matrix and using binary code, I scoured the internet, all the sources in the world, and here's what I found out about Elly. So, she loves writing for kids, which is evident considering how much I loved her new book, Dear Students, and how much I want to read her other books. She's a fan of Twizzlers. I mean, who isn't? I'm not the hugest fan, but I know a lot of people who are diehard fans. The twisted version of Red Vines, for those who don't know. And anything with her family. That's what she likes. She grew up in Yardley, Pennsylvania, studied psychology at Boston University, and if that's not impressive enough, she also earned a law degree from Georgetown University Law Center. Wow. All of that, and she's the author of 4 contemporary middle grade novels filled with hope and books that so many kids love. I'm just beyond excited to chat with Elly Swartz today about everything books, and thank you so much for joining me today.
E-Train, thank you so much for having me. Your introduction made my heart so happy, and it's just such a pleasure to meet you in sort of almost person. I followed your podcast, and you are an inspiration to me. So it's exciting to kind of come together and collaborate.
It certainly is. And when I saw your panel on the Lit Equity Conference, which was on August 4th, I was so inspired. I'd heard about your book, Dear Student, like everywhere. And when I saw that panel, I thought to myself, I need to read that book. So you thankfully got me a copy, and I devoured it in just a few days. Well, no, one sitting actually. And I posted a book review podcast, and now here we are in an interview, and in person, but not like in person. It's weird to say. And now I'm excited to ask you my first question. So, if you don't know, in Dear Students, there's something called Fearless Fred. It's regarding, like, the courage inside of us, and, like, it's a name that... I'm mixing up Elly and Autumn now. It's the nickname that Autumn's dad created for the courage inside of you. Like, there's a moment where you're just afraid. You're standing up in front of so many people, but then that Fearless Fred comes out. So was there someone who inspired the name Fearless Fred?
It's so interesting that you asked that. So the name, the moniker Fearless Fred, as you said, is the part of each one of us that fear cannot boss around. And we all have that. I mean, so many kids think that fearlessness comes with the confident and the popular, but you can be anxious, you can be quiet, you can be worried, and we all have that fearlessness in us. So the moniker Fearless Fred is not attributed to any individual person named Fred in my life, but the concept is the idea of that we all have that fearlessness in us is an embodiment of so many people in my life who show that bravery and that strength in the face of challenge. The kids I've met going around the country, meeting them at schools, who have showed me how strong and brave and fearless they are, even when they have moments of uncertainty and doubt. And so I think Fearless Fred came together as sort of a tribute to all those people in my world.
I love that answer. And Fearless Fred is just such a fitting name. Also, it rolls off the tongue really nicely.
Right? And I love it.
Yeah, me too. And I feel like, you're so right that we all have a Fearless Fred inside of us. Like, a part of us that fear just can't take over. And
right.
I'm so glad that you introduced that concept into Dear Student because that's exactly what Autumn needed. Autumn needed her fearless Fred, and her fearless Fred came right when she needed it. No spoilers or anything, anybody.
No spoilers, but you're right. I mean, sometimes we just don't see ourselves as brave. And I went around the country and I asked a lot of kids, like, who's brave? Like, who do you think is brave? And a lot of kids tell me about their dad or their brother or their mom or their friends, but they never point to themselves. And so I thought a lot about that when I was creating Autumn and Fearless Fred.
Yeah, that is the most meaningful and heartwarming concept I've really ever read or seen in a book. And now I carry that message that we all have a fearless Fred inside of ourselves everywhere I go. And throughout the story, the protagonist Autumn fights for animal rights. A local business is hurting animals for money, and she wants none of that. Autumn is like, yeah, I'm gonna stop that. So she helps organize a peaceful protest with the help of her new friend. And I just gotta ask, are you an animal rights activist too? Or do you know someone else who is?
I'm not an activist in that way, not the way Autumn is, but I believe in my heart about fighting for the things that matter to us. I do that through writing and standing up for the people that I feel have been hurt and not seen. But I think, and I'm a huge animal lover. I have two dogs, Baxter Bean and Lucy, and we had a guinea pig. We've had African pygmy hedgehogs, hamsters, gerbils, fish. We've kind of had animals throughout my childhood, and I have two sons who are adults now, but through their whole childhood. So I think protecting the most vulnerable population, be it animals, in this instance, it's important to me. It's important to me to give a voice to the voiceless and vulnerable. And in this case, that's pets.
I love that Autumn found her fearless Fred in that way. And I'm so glad that you use writing to share that message because, like social media, writing is kind of a way to tell the entire world, inspire the entire world, and motivate the entire world. So I'm so glad that you added that into Dear Student. And I was really impressed and intrigued when I discovered that you majored in psychology and graduated from law school. You must be very committed and a very dedicated person. So can you share
I wake up early.
Can you share a little bit about your journey into those two fields of study and how they influenced your writing at all?
Sure. So as you shared, I was a psychology major at BU. I've always been super curious. I was a super curious kid. I was the why kid. Well, why? Why? I mean, I just never was, my curiosity was never really satiated. And I was always curious about why we do things, what motivates people, how the mind-body connection, and psychology just really interests me. So I majored in it. I loved it. And then I went to Georgetown to law school. I loved law school. I loved the nuances of the law. I practiced. I was a litigator for a bit. I taught legal research and writing for a while. I wrote law books. And I think whether it's through law or psychology or the books I write, it's all about story. It's all, when psychology is the story of your life, right? Or the lives of the people you meet, sort of understanding their heart and their mind. Law and cases are all about the stories of other people's lives and what has impacted those and sort of righting the wrongs. And then the stories I write are fictitious, but they're also what motivates people, what touches their heart, what impacts their journey. So I think that they all kind of inform each other. I think the legal aspect of me is the part of me that fights for those rights that we were talking about and wants to give a voice to the voiceless and the unseen, whether it's pets or mental health issues that are represented in the books, the kids who feel unseen. So I feel like and the psychology, I just feel like I learned to understand and be more insightful and empathetic and compassionate about what people are going through, and that you may not be able to always judge a book by its cover, right? Like you might not see how people are hurting inside. And I think that has been something that has really informed a lot of the decisions I make and the way I sort of go about my life in the world.
Elly is full of great answers today.
Thank you, E-Train.
Now, would you want to be a psychologist or lawyer if you weren't an author?
Yeah, I mean, I am a lawyer and I did practice. So I love the law. I don't love litigation. My husband is a litigator. He's great at it. So that was not the right path for me. But I do love the law and I did love being a lawyer. It just wasn't where my passion was. Being a psychologist, maybe. I mean, that would have been a path I think I would have really enjoyed. I do, my friends and I confide in each other and talk through strategies and how to and resources and tools in our toolbox and how to navigate the world. I like that. It interests me, and I like helping people. So I think a psychologist would have been something that would interest me. You know what else, E-Train, that I really is on my bucket list? I don't know if it will ever happen, but I really want to be like the voice of an animated character in a movie or TV show.
That's cool. It's so weird. It like seeing some actors when they're not animated characters, it's so weird. Like you can't fit their voices in the in those movies with like them in real life.
Right. I get that.
I voiced the main character in a book trailer, and it feels so weird. It's just like I cannot picture my voice with that character. So
I love that you did that. That's awesome.
Yeah, it was very fun. But this is not about me. This is about you. So on to the next question.
All right.
So while I've only read your latest book, Dear Students, I'm really curious, and I'm sure our listeners are as well, to hear a bit about some of your other middle grade books. Are there certain themes you often portray in these reads, or are there little tidbits that you want to share with us about them?
Sure, I'll give you a few tidbits. And I think there is a theme, not intentionally. I just think that's what motivates me, and that's like where my heart is. So Finding Perfect was my debut, and E-Train, I don't know if you know this, but it took 15 years for me to get published. Finding Perfect was my first book that came out, but it was the 5th book I wrote. Wow. So, and that is about a girl named Molly whose mom leaves the family to take a job elsewhere, and her life spins out of control. Molly has undiagnosed OCD, or obsessive compulsive disorder. And this is a story about her learning that there really is no such thing as perfect, and really self-acceptance. I love Molly, and she has, she's been a big part of my journey. I've heard from a lot of readers that she and her story and the coming to terms with OCD has been impactful in their personal lives as well. And then Smart Cookie came out. Smart Cookie is about a girl who secretly puts a dating profile online to find her dad a wife with the help of her best friend, Elliot, who is a ghost hunter. Frankie's mom had died many years ago, and she wants a family again. This story is about her realizing that family is more than just the people that you grow up with or share a name. It's all the people in your herd. It's all the people who've got your back. That sometimes it's found family. So, and that like Frankie, my mom died young. And so I connect with her in a lot of ways in terms of, realizing that there are a lot of people in your world who are your family. So that was Frankie, but she's a hot ticket. And her and Elliot are a good pair. And there is a ghost story in that. And then there's, Dear Student. Is that the next one? Oh, no, Give and Take. About Maggie, who
so many books, she forgets which one is next.
Maggie's grandmother had dementia, so she was forgetful, sometimes about keys and glasses. One time she forgot that she loved chocolate donuts. I mean, who forgets they love chocolate donuts? And then one time she forgot Maggie. Maggie has a hard time letting go of people and things. She doesn't want to forget, and she doesn't want to be forgotten. And so when her family takes in a foster baby named Izzy, she has a really hard time saying goodbye. Maggie collects things that many would throw away, sticks and old clothes, and holds onto things under her bed and in her closet and in her locker. She has a lot of anxiety, and that's how it manifests. And this is her story about learning that sometimes love means letting go. And then that brings us to Dear Student, about a girl with social anxiety, a pet guinea pig named Spud, who becomes the secret voice of the middle school advice column. And so those are the books that are out in the world. And you asked about a theme, not intentionally, but it seems all of my books have touched on and incorporate main characters who have mental health challenges, anxiety, OCD, hoarding, depression. And it's important to me that kids are represented in these books that have all of these things, because kids have this stuff. Kids have anxiety. They have mental health challenges. And the more we can talk about it, the more we normalize it. And the more people will reach out and get help. Because what I don't like, what isn't okay with me, is when I travel around and talk to kids and ask them why they haven't shared, they say, oh, I don't want kids to think I'm weird. And I don't want them to stop hanging out with me. That's not okay with me. It's not okay with me that people feel shame or embarrassment. It's like needing glasses or getting a cast on your arm. So I want all kids to feel seen and respected. And so for me, it's not intentional, but that seems to be something that has been woven into my stories.
Well, my mom called me a smart cookie once. I was little, so I tried to bite myself. I didn't. Not only are your titles on point, your descriptions, your books, they're all the perfect. I'm speechless.
Oh,
I need to read Smart Cookie, Give and Take, all of these.
Thank you.
And
I'm curious to hear what you think about them once you do.
I know I'm going to love them, and all of my listeners are going to love them as well, because you all need to read Dear Students. You need to read all of Elly's books, because they tackle such important topics, and they remind us that we need to normalize anxiety. We need to end the stigmas, because anxiety isn't some big one-person problem. Everybody, a lot of people have it.
Right. I mean, I think E-Train, that really encapsulates a lot of what I feel, is that anxiety, it doesn't define you. It's not just somebody else's problem. We all have anxiety. Whether you have a mental health challenge, whether it's something that you have an anxiety disorder, or you have moments of feeling anxious, we all can relate. We all can relate at times to feel like autumn, like what is the right thing to say? What should I wear? We all can feel those moments where we step in a room and feel uncomfortable. And I think if we can realize that those moments that we all feel at times are something that others feel often, we can empathize and start having those conversations. And because, right, anxiety, mental health stuff, sometimes it's invisible. And unless you reach out and use your voice, like we're talking about with Autumn, right? In this story, she really finds her voice. Unless you find your voice and you're fearless Fred, no one is going to know that you're hurting. And so it's so important. I want kids to know that they're fearless, to know that other kids experience these things, and to know that it's okay. It's okay to not feel okay, and to know that they're going to get to the other side.
It's October, and your protagonist's name is Autumn. The book takes place in autumn. You must be a pretty big fan of autumn. So
I am.
Yeah, so speaking of, because it's Halloween's coming up, because it's fall, you got your pumpkin spice latte from Starbucks in your hand, and you're sitting by the fireplace because it's getting pretty cold outside, although it's not too cold. Fall is just that kind of in-between zone that I love. So what are your fall middle grade reads? What are your favorites? And also, what are some what's your favorite spooky middle grade book?
The spooky middle grade, I think Lindsay Curry has
Yes.
really done an amazing job. And her new one is called The Girl in White, I think. Yeah. And I am excited to read that. I've read her other books. I think she kind of nails the whole spooky, scary thing really well for middle grade. The book I'm reading now is by A.S. King, The Attack of the Black Rectangles.
Oh, I've seen that.
So it's excellent. E-Train, I highly recommend it. And she's a phenomenal author, and that's what I'm reading now. And I'm also writing now. So a lot of times when I am writing a new book, I step away from, I don't read as much, because it's really important to me that the voice of my character that I'm writing is not influenced by any voice that I'm reading about. So I kind of stay in my the world in which I'm creating while I'm writing.
What are your writing projects that you're working on right now? Or what can we look forward to?
I have a couple of writing projects that are happening now, which I love. I love having a bunch of things that I'm working on at once. I just handed in copy edits not that long ago and got a sneak peek at the cover of my next book called Hidden Truths. It's coming out, I don't have an exact date, but I think it's September 2023. So it's coming out next year. I love the cover. I love this story. So E-Train, remember I told you my journey was very long to writing? Mm-hmm. This was the first book I wrote in 2001. And it has only taken me 22 years to get it right.
Wow.
It's a very different book now than it was back then. It's my first dual point of view. It is my first book with a boy and girl protagonist. It is a book about changing friendships, navigating changing friendships, the promises we make, the secrets we keep, the lies we tell, and the healing nature of forgiveness. And the question, like, how far would you go to keep a promise to a friend? It's about Eric and Danny, who are neighbors and best friends. Danny is a hotshot baseball player, and she wants to be the first girl on the all-boys team. She knows exactly who she is and what she wants. Eric, not so much. He is lovable. He loves crossword puzzles. And
that's my kind of kid.
Right. And mine too. I love Eric. He has a giant heart. He's a great friend. And he doesn't know what he wants. And he's totally fine with it. I mean, he's not loving that he's super forgetful. And at times he wishes his ADHD would kind of take a back seat. But he knows he's okay with being uncertain until there's an accident that happens. And Danny's baseball plans are, I'll just say, put on hold. And Eric is worried that it's his fault. This is a lot about guilt and forgiveness and friendship. And I love this story. And so that is coming out in less than a year, coming out next September. And then there is a new book that I'm writing right now. that is coming out in 2025. It has not been announced, so I can't really share much about it. It's just to say, stay tuned. I am busy writing it. I love this book, and it's a pretty great project. I'm very excited. So I'm entrenched in writing that book right now. And then I'm working on trying to get a picture book, which I have written a zillion. None of them are really good yet, but I'm working on it.
Well, I'm looking forward to all of your upcoming projects.
Thank you.
And your newest book that's coming out, that is the book for me. Because it's so just, I found that there's no books that really tackle navigating friendships. And as I'm a 6th grader, I just started, it's hard to like really know. And I guess it's just, I haven't really found a middle grade book that's kind of tackled that topic. And I know that a lot of kids like me really need it. Because it's kind of hard to know, should you hold on to friendships? How do you create new friendships? Like, have I done something wrong? Am I the bad person? Am I the bad guy? Oh yeah, you go.
No, you asked really good questions. I have goosebumps because I feel like Hidden Truths tackles a lot of that. And it is about navigating these changing friendships that you have when you're in elementary school and you live near each other, or your parents are friends. And then as you start changing, how does that impact those friendships? And so I'm excited for you to read it. And I feel like Dear Student does that too.
Yeah.
And it, really sort of explores how we can grow together, like her and Prisha, even though they're not physically together, her friend who moved, and then how we change and grow as a person and as a friend.
I've spoken to a few authors who've included Jewish themes or characters in their stories, and they've been told by agents and publishers that their novels are too Jewish. Have you or someone close to you experienced this?
I haven't. I haven't had that experience. I'm Jewish. My characters are Jewish. Sometimes it's more evident than others. I know PJ Library is looking at Dear Student. I hope they take it. But I weave in, there are parts of me, if you're writing from that place of true authenticity, right? There are parts of your heart, parts of your life, parts of you that are going to end up on the page. And a part of that is my, being Jewish. So there are parts of that sprinkled in to Dear Student and part of who Autumn is. But I have not had that. I've had, I've worked with great people, and I've had acceptance in terms of the way I go about sharing, in this instance, Autumn's Jewishness.
So I find it extremely difficult to just sit and write. Like, I have an idea, but then after like 20 minutes, I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna stop writing for now. It's just so hard to focus sometimes and stay focused on one idea. So how do you just focus on writing and keep on typing away?
Great question. First of all, I would say it's really important to be kind to yourself in writing and in life. You're going to have moments where you get stuck. You're going to have moments where you read it back and you're like, oof, eek, that's terrible. You're going to have moments of doubt. You got to turn off the internal editor and just allow yourself the freedom and brain space to move forward. So that brings me to how I get my brain space, because when my mind is filled with to-dos and shoulds, I can't write anything. So I'll go for a walk. I'll walk my dogs. If it's raining, I will dance in my kitchen. I am a big and I do school visits. If we're talking about this topic of how you get your ideas and how you get unstuck, I play music and we all start dancing.
What kind of music?
Anyway, well, I usually play the song Brave by
that's a great song.
Yeah. And so that is how often I start writing, when I'm stuck. But you can I mean, you can do jumping jacks. You can move to a space that you don't normally write in. If you write at your desk, go to the kitchen table, or go to sit under a tree outside if it's nice. Or I will change my routine. I'll change the font. I'll change the color. I'll change the size of the font or color. So it's all about tricking your brain so that it thinks it's doing something new, so that you can kind of, the weight of, oh my God, I have to write this. So usually when I am writing a first draft like I am now, I tell students, if I'm in school, I call my first draft Swiss cheese, because I know it's going to stink and it's going to have a lot of holes in it. And so if I know that the first thing I write is going to stink, it really frees my brain to it gives me the permission to write something terrible, knowing that in revision is where the magic is. So I'll find that magic. So I would say those are some of my tips. I also have my character sometimes write me a letter and tell me a secret. That can, take yourself away from the screen and staring at the screen. I use emojis a lot when I'm writing and stuff.
Really?
Yep. I go back in and I put an emoji at the top and bottom of each chapter. What is the emotion going in? What is the emotion going out? And if all of my faces are like smiley, I realize I just wrote like a giant Hallmark card. And if they're all like sad, I'm like, nobody wants to read that. Like, who wants to be weeping? So it allows me to unstick from the monotonous thing. And it also allows you to access your story from a different way. So visually, using the emojis, or I'll read it out loud. I mean, or you do a partner swap with a friend and they read it, or you record yourself reading it if you don't want to share, if you're not ready to share it yet. And that, again, allows you to access your story from an auditory standpoint, because sometimes you just need to mix it up. You just can't sit and stare at your screen. It's not gonna give back to you in that way. So those are some of the things I do to unstick.
I'm very sad because it's time for the final question of the interview. The question I ask every single author, literacy advocate, everybody that I interview. If you could be or meet any literary character, fictional or real, it could be an author, or it could be the most fictional character you can think of in a book. Who would it be and why?
Okay. I would like to meet Harold in the Purple Crayon. I would like to meet Harold so that he and I can go on an adventure with his purple crayon. I don't want to go alone. I think I'd be a little nervous. But I would like to go with Harold as my friend and guide. And we would take his purple crayon and go on a really cool adventure.
That'd be fun.
Right? You can come with us, E-Train.
All right, I'll pack my bags. And I just gotta say, your answers have been so inspiring, just wonderful, and I'm gonna definitely use your bookish ideas in my writing. And thank you so much for joining me today, Elly. I'm so honored and so happy you could share your writing journey and your amazing books on E-Train Talks. You've been a huge supporter of my podcast, and that makes it even more special to talk with you. I'm looking forward to reading more of your meaningful reads and seeing what you do next. So I hope you'll come back and chat again. We'll call it Elly the Sequel.
Thank you so much for having me, E-Train. This has been absolutely wonderful and so much fun. And yes, I will definitely be back.
Yay! It's been a blast for me as well. I've learned so much, and everybody, I've talked to the wonderful Elly Swartz of E-Train Talked. And Elly Swartz is the author of Dear Students, the book that the world needs to read. I'll say it again. The world needs to read it. So go find yourself a copy, and you'll see why. On that page 1, you're already going to be hooked. I was. And until next time, stay safe, keep reading, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.